Okay. Nice to sit here. I've got a ghostly image on Zoom because a little bit of glare from the window. So, yeah, this is not any kind of spiritual effect taking place. If I seem semi-transparent, that's that's how I look. Look very ordinary right here. And thank you for being here on this shortest day of the year. So in something to talk about today, then I turned to a teaching from early Zen, the Chan Zen, the classic period in China, which I seem to endlessly mine for Dharma teachings. Perhaps, well, I don't think I'll ever exhaust that period of time. In the tradition that I come from at Yokoji at the Zen Center, the main lineage, the temple lineage, is Soto Zen. Two of the main practices of Zen Buddhism continue down to the present day. There used to be 5 back in the Golden Age, but they coalesced down into 2 main approaches: Soto Zen approach and the Rinzai Zen approach, and both are well represented today in the world, in Japan, in the United States, in Europe, lots of different places. Just a little different emphasis in terms of approach to both to meditation and to practice in general. At Yokoji, then Maizumi Roshi was my teacher's teacher, had training and authorization in both Rinzai and Soto. So it's something of a hybrid or amalgam of the main Zen traditions. But then this kind of emphasis of approach around meditation still comes up. One way that this was spoken about is that Rinzai Zen puts maybe wisdom and insight first, and then concentration and presence second. So there's like the emphasis is more on insight and understanding, wisdom, penetration into reality, puts that first, perhaps presence and concentration comes second. And that's reversed in the approach of Soto Zen, which is presence and concentration comes first, and then wisdom and insight comes second. And I found as I, just with years of practice, and then maybe perhaps just my own process, getting older or living longer, I have more affinity for the second, the peacefulness, presence, and concentration first, and then we'll see what wisdom and insight comes from that. But if not so much, that's okay, because being present and concentrated here, perhaps the main emphasis. And so in the lineage, we have certain pivotal figures. The founder of what's called Soto Zen is Zen teacher called Tozan, who's active in the, the late 9th century in China. And that's the lineage that then carried forward through Dogen in Japan, and then carried through Maizumi Roshi to United States. Again, just talking from my particular lineage. Wonderful thing about Dharma teachings is we have lineages and cultures and history and just this huge mix that's managed to put down good roots in United States and other places. And it's important to practice along with our affinity with Dharma practice, what really speaks to you. It's such a broad and vast subject in terms of lineage and style that one lifetime isn't enough to explore it all, but one lifetime is definitely enough to explore the most important principle. right? And that's where your affinity lies, is what is the most important principle of our own life, our own practice, the reason that calls to you or brings you to a contemplative practice like this, our own essential question, our own essential being. Tozan was someone who greatly valued the natural world, which was typical of the day for these Zen practitioners living mostly outside in the mountains or in simple buildings in those times. And it said that he was very much inspired by, summed up in a phrase, the insentient preaches the Dharma. And sometimes in Mahayana Buddhism we'll say, there's a vow that says, sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Right? Sentient beings, and that's where we bring kind of consciousness. Is something alive or not? Right? I mean, I brought up at the beginning, like the fact of the mountains sitting here and the valley floor sitting here. Are the mountains and the earth alive? Yeah, is there anything? Where can one draw the line around what is conscious or unconscious? Very, very hard to say. From the standpoint of our experience, everything is alive. Everything is conscious. It said that Tozan studied for many years, but wasn't able to come to a realization that was satisfactory, a sense of freedom in himself, and so he kept going, but couldn't find that satisfaction just training with a teacher or studying the Dharma, and actually left the temple environment to continue his spiritual journey alone. And it said that when he left, he was crossing a river in the mountains, very carefully with a staff. And I say very carefully with the staff, because if you in the 9th century in China, kind of fell down in the river, then the helicopter's not coming, right? It's like the GPS isn't going to be locating you. It's so maybe a little extra care. We should still apply that care hiking in the mountains now. And it said that as he was crossing the river, feeling despondent of having entered a temple and practiced for many years and not really matching the yearning for a realization of his life, but he glances down and sees his reflection, himself reflected back. You can imagine that kind of choppy image of like seeing one's face in the river. And at that point, that his life's question is answered. There's a deep realization of seeing himself reflected in the surface of the water. And confirming this statement of the insentient preaching the Dharma, the world waking us up, receiving the world. He went on to do writing, which is still taught and prized and studied today. And like some of these figures, when you go back 1,000 or 1,200 years, it could have been him, it could have been his teacher, it could have been one of his successors. But a big founder will often scoop up the credits. We'll get the credits for a whole generation of teachers. So who knows? Not so important. But the teaching I wanted to bring up something from today is from the 5 ranks of Tozan, which is seen as being perhaps the most subtle and complete, and sometimes the most difficult teaching of Zen. It comes right at the end of the study of all of the koans and the years of practice, and so it's considered, again, a difficult and subtle teaching. But I have complete confidence in everyone here and everyone online to access the 5 ranks and glean something from this. Hopefully something useful. The most useful thing is to come here and arrive and find a spot in the parking lot and come in and greet everybody and sit down. That's an act of wisdom. That's an act of compassion. We might always not acknowledge it as so. It's very compassionate action to oneself to decide to come to sangha and to practice, to sit alongside one another and have even that 30 minutes of meditation. When I sit here, it always seems to go like that. When I sit here for 30 minutes, I don't know how it is for you. You know, it's just that timelessness, and it just flows by. And it's almost there's a kind of a poignancy where it's like it's a shame to stop sitting in one sense. It's just on one level, I could just sit here all day. You know, on an absolute level, on a relative level, I need the bathroom, and you know, I'm going to get hungry, and my legs will hurt. But on an absolute level, you know, can we, as we sit, relax into the presence of mind, which is shared by the mountains and the earth and everything and everyone around us, and really relax, sit all of the way down, and be completely as we are without conflict. If we can enter into, realize and express that principle, then you are a Dharma practitioner, a true practitioner of the way, as they would say in the Zen record, a true practitioner of the way. One who is content to sit down and be just as is. It's a very powerful thing. Okay, I should read from the 5 ranks. So, in the scheme of the 5 ranks, the 5 points of the way are shift, submission, achievement, collective achievement, and absolute achievement. So this is our 5 points on the way. Somewhat from beginning to end, right? So there is a linear quality here, a process of practice. But that linear quality, that process of practice, you could think of it more like perhaps like a clock or a circle that's turning clockwise. There is a beginning and a next step, just like in our calendar. November becomes December, becomes January. There is the solstice, and then tomorrow's day is a little longer. There is a linear quality of moving from this to that, but that moving from this to that goes on endlessly and keeps turning. This is our life. This is the way the world is. The first here is called, the header is shift. This is like to enter the way. And when I say to enter the way, we don't have to, sign up to be a Buddhist, sign up to say, I am now a Dharma, etc., right? But there's nothing that needs to be taken on in terms of extra identity. Sometimes having an identity around these things might be appropriate or inappropriate. That's up to each one of us to, again, with our affinity, to investigate. Right? But to be a practitioner, which is somebody in this case who sits, is present, and is completely themselves, that's our beginning point, right? That's our beginning point of shift. Now, why is it a shift? There's an accompanying poem to each of these verses. This is the one for shift. Following the example set by the Emperor Yao, okay, so I can see everyone's like, okay, yeah, I know. Got you so far. The person teaches ethics to the people. At times, they pass by the noisy marketplace, and all people welcome the royal rule. Okay, so we have to make some allowance. So this was written about 1200 years ago in kind of imperial China, right? But it's pointing to someone who's made the shift toward living or being, entering into a way of being and a way of living. Following in the example set by Emperor Yao, we good thing is, look it up. He was a good emperor. It wasn't like Emperor Palpatine, following Emperor Palpatine. This is Emperor Yao, who was seen as being a beneficent and a good ruler, right? So following a good example and leading and helping teach ethics to the people. So the way of Zen, or the way of Buddhism, the way of Dharma is, following the good examples. We could pull them from the tradition. We could say the Buddha, Thich Nhat Hanh, who we might hold up as a model of good practice. Following that, then we decide to live ethically or in accord with what is beneficial for self and other. That's also the beginning point of the perfections of the paramitas. The beginning point is dana, or generosity, which means more than what we put in the basket, but also, again, the shift from a self-centered view. The shift then is outward into a broader sphere of self. Right? So the Buddha would say that, or had said that, the default human way is to be self-centered, right? Or often that's a key part of the human condition. We have this experience of me, I, in the world, and we're trying to navigate it, and it's busy and challenging and chaotic, and we also have our desires and preferences. But when we live just from this kind of me, I center, we can follow a mistaken view of always trying to get the best we can for this one here. And if we look out into the world, we can see there's a lot of that going on, right? Like how to accumulate more money, accumulate more power, accumulate. But with our insight of practice, we realize ultimately there's not a point to accumulating a whole lot of stuff. It's the you can't take it with you truth of life. Right? It's like we don't find ultimate satisfaction in gain that comes from the outside, in objects. Right? So there's a shift, a voice, a part of our heart that says, we really wish to live in a way which is beneficial and supportive of this one and of others. And so then we come to the second one, submission, or sometimes translated as surrender, submission, which can be a difficult word. It's like, oh, hold on, before I sign up for step 2, what's involved in submission or surrender here? Here's the poem that goes along. For whom is the elaborate toilette now discarded? We'll get to that. The cuckoo's call urges a traveller to return home. Its note continues when all the flowers have fallen, echoing deep among the intermingling peaks. So if we say we made our shift, the shift toward not just chasing after objects or temporary short-term desires of mind, but a deeper shift into our integrity and ethics, which is there at the bottom, and deciding to live in accord with, to live a life which is aimed toward benefit and away from dukkha and away from suffering. Right? That's like our Buddhism 101, like that root approach. We make that shift, and we start to study, or we come to sangha. We start to meditate. We might not know exactly even why or what it is we're really looking for, but there's a call there. And we move to this point of, in the verse, the cuckoo's call urges a traveller to return home. Like everyone here and everyone online, right? It's like we're all travellers, right? We might be in a relative way too, right? Traveling around the world, or at least around the valley, right? But a traveller in the sense of how curious to be born and live as a human being in this world. Like we're all on that journey. We're all travelling the globe. Even if we don't go more than a couple of miles from home, we're still traveling the globe. We're on a journey. We're travelers, right? And yet we hear this call urging us to return home. In Buddhism, in Zen, they call that the Bodhi mind, the awakening of the Bodhi mind, the inner voice that calls us to return to our most essential self, our most essential essence. And that isn't something esoteric or something, right? That is this practice of still sitting. Something that calls us to return to our most essential, fundamental being. That's like the invitation at the beginning of each meditation, right? To like let go of like the objects of mind. Don't be perturbed by the beeping of the horn outside or a phone going off or what the air conditioner is off or on, right? All of that relative tinkering that we do. That's our preferring mind. And as human beings, we are indelibly wired that way. It comes with the programming, right? That's the software we're running, picking and preferring. But if we want to know our innermost self, where dukkha or suffering can be dissolved or let go, then it requires or asks that we drop or let go that picking, preferring mind. The mind that's always, that aspect of ourself that is always looking for something else or looking for something better. Right, so this is the submission to the world, our life, whatever we put in to describe this, the submission to the way it absolutely is. The way things are now, and then the way things are now, and the way things are now. Right? Spoiler alert, it's always now. Right? So this submission is not a one and done, but it is the actively choosing to let go of the gripping the wheel so hard, let go of micromanaging the content so much, and to really to sit back into our present self, our present being, and then drop that preferring function that can't accept things as they are. Now, if you sit this way and you realize, well, I'm still running a script that is saying, you know, this should stop, I prefer it like this, that, and the other, maybe I'm doing it wrong, or maybe it's not landing for me, I'm not getting it, then that isn't so. We are all this, like, we ceaselessly pick and choose, we ceaselessly prefer and desire. But the deeper aspect of ourself can disengage or remain unperturbed by that ceaseless chop running through the mind. It's a question of where do we put our self there, or how do we understand ourselves? Do we just live in the picking, preferring, wanting to change and comment place, or can we really sit all of the way down and allow that one to do their thing, while this deeper aspect of our present self, which is called, in this case would be the Buddha nature, or the awakened self, is still alive, present, and can watch and allow that to unfold. Just to even allow our own human grumbling about the content. Right? And you can let that one play, and you can even maybe reassure that one, it's okay, you're okay, don't worry about it, it's going to be fine. And extend a compassionate hand to your own sense of self, the own sense of me, I. But the place of sitting, the place of rest, to shift to and then submit to, is the one at the center who is nameless, has no story or script, has no history, but is the present appearance of the whole world, which is ceaselessly so. This first line I have to comment on. For whom is the elaborate toilet now discarded? I guess that toilet is like cologne, or perfume, which we discard. And it says something about our sense of self, or kind of that, maybe a little bit of putting a face on, putting a face onto the world. It's like we all put a face on, like wherever we go, right? It's like you walk into a certain room, you're a certain person. You walk into another room or another place, maybe that changes. There's flexibility there, right? But if we're projecting or putting on an extra me on top, like the face that we want to show people, that's like the cologne of a perfume. That just reminds me, when I first got to the Zen Center from Yokoji, I was, and there were a lot of residents at that time, and they have like a men's bathhouse and a women's bathhouse, and I was in the men's side, and I remember I was having a shave, and there was a couple of friends there, and then when I was done shaving, and I had my like bottle of cologne from the UK, and I was like, Givenchy Paul Home or something, kind of, and I splashed that on, and then my friend who was there, he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, just, putting on and he's like, we don't really do that here, And I'm like, oh, okay. And I think that was the only time I did it. But we had, and that's always been a thing at a practice center or a temple. It's like, don't put a strong scent. Everybody sits in the meditation hall and has to breathe that, right? So that's like, please don't wear strong scents coming into the meditation hall. But in a deeper sense here, anything that we put up on the surface or try and kind of aggrandize and show our best self, we always risk then having something like a face on or a shell on front. But how is this deeper, unperfumed, plain self? The baseline being of our life, is that one at home? Do we know that one? Is that one available? That's the one to realize, particularly in meditation. The one that can sit here all day, fine with how things are, even our own kind of grumbling mind that's just a part of it. It's the bird's call urges a traveller to turn home. Its note continues when all the flowers have fallen, echoing deep among the intermingling peaks. So this bird call continues when all of the flowers have fallen. In the spiritual life, or in Buddhism, in Dharma and Zen, we have all of these kind of ups and downs, and we can have realizations. You have the realization that's like, this practice is working for me. I'm making some gains here, perhaps, It's like, or it feels better, or maybe we even wander into the land of kind of attainment. I feel like I've got it now. I'm feeling more at home in the self, right? So it might be like kind of just cataloging that and noticing that. But in life, we know that whatever flowers bloom, whatever comes up in terms of causes and conditions and circumstances, those flowers will fade, and eventually those blossoms will fall. Dogen has a line where he says, flowers fall even though we love them, and weeds proliferate even though we dislike them. Right? That's life, right? We just can't, we have those high points, but then they fall. But then that's true also of the low points. They also pass through. Anything that appears in that realm of form and circumstance is, by its very nature, impermanent. So being realized about that, however life is unfolding us, on the level of causes and conditions, it is time-bound. Not to our agenda. We'd like the bad things to pass quickly and the good things to last longer. Or at least I would, right? Human being. That's my nature as a human being. But in our Buddha nature, it's allowed to be as is, and the rising and the falling of the content, whether good or bad, is not of any relevancy ultimately. Right? And still, when the flowers have fallen, that note continues. And then this nice line, echoing deep among the intermingling peaks. Sometimes, you have that view where you see the mountains here, or you look out towards, I guess, Joshua Tree, and I come down driving from Yokoji, and you see those intermingling peaks, and you see the front range, and they kind of stand out in sort of sharp relief, and then behind you just see, oh, there's more there, but it's hazy, and then it's hard to see how far those mountains go, and it goes into the indistinct. In the same way in our life, our short-term focus of what's here now and the present circumstances of the day, of the week, that tends to be in sharper relief, right? But also within that is the indistinct, the causes and conditions, the things that are just beginning to appear that we don't see yet. And life goes on in that way. And whatever peak we climb, whatever particular mountain you climb, it's like that in Zen practice or in Dharma practice. No matter, it's kind of like hiking in the mountains or climbing a peak. It takes effort, persistence. Spiritual life certainly does. It's like a path of inquiry. There's lots of ups and downs on the trail. Sometimes you get a little lost. That's why we have guides, right? For people who've been up a couple of times maybe, to help us. So we go on, but steadily we just keep climbing. And maybe at some point we hit a peak. Have some wonderful realization, some kind of breakthrough even. And we can enjoy being and just arrive at the peak. Oh my gosh. And then you turn. Oh, I just climbed the little hill. Look at this thing behind me. And you see there's another peak. There's always another peak. And life's that way, right? No matter how many hills and mountains we climb or rivers that we cross, it keeps unfolding. It keeps unfolding. And our way in this to practice toward enlightenment or awakening, it's not like trying to hit the finish line, right? Our human self likes that as a goal. If I practice, maybe one day I hit the finish line. It's much more like walking toward a horizon, right? It comes into realization. We're sitting, we realize a mind ground of presence. You know what it is to be at home in yourself and to sit. And then looking out into the world, you can see the horizon all around you. Right? It's like now when we see it in here, we see the whole room, and then as you get up, the rest of, oh my gosh, then there's the front door in the parking lot, and Palm Springs appears and begins to unfold in front of us. The mountains appear again. The sky appears again. Everywhere that we walk, everything that we do, it's always unfolding. And we're walking forward to meet it. And it continues. Well, I want to leave some time for questions and comment and reflection. I realize we're through 2 of 5, right? But in one sense, it's like all of our practice life is contained in these 2. The willing shift to make a shift away from just, that sense of me-I identity that tends to suffer, it gets stuck, feels limited. The shift away to something broader than that me-I, something much deeper, something that involves everyone and everything. And then that submission, that willingness to over and over and over again, surrender to this, submit to this life, to this reality as it is. And as hard as it is to accept and allow it as it is. And we might find ourselves at times unable to accept the way things are. I do. I don't accept. As a human being, there are things I don't accept. But that's okay too. We can deeply accept our non-acceptance and still continue. There's always a way in the way. Okay, I'm gonna put it there for now and just open it up for anyone that you'd like to share anything this brings up for you, for those on Zoom too. But I'm glad you reminded me, because I brought the Tao Te Ching all this way, and maybe before we have the metta chant, I would like to just share this. And this is from Stephen Mitchell's translation of the Tao Te Ching, which I really recommend. It's wonderfully well done. This is stanza the number 24, and he tends to rotate the pronouns through the book, which is I think a skillful way to do this. This is one starts with he. He who stands on tiptoe doesn't stand firm. He who rushes ahead doesn't go far. He who tries to shine dims his own light. He who defines himself can't know who he really is. He who has power over others can't empower himself. He who clings to his work will create nothing that endures. If you want to accord with the Tao, just do your job and let go. So, yeah. Thank you. Okay, we'll close with going forth. I'm going to put that in the chat for everybody online. I put the link for the Dharma ask in the chat too, and just a reminder for us all for help support the organization. And okay. Oh, I'm going to read the 5 ranks through again. So let me just switch here. Okay. Going forth into this world, so in need of light, may I bring all the kindness and wisdom I embody to each being and each situation that I meet. May the power of my practice today strengthen my resolve to be an agent of peace and justice in this world. Going forth together into this world, so in need of light, may we together bring all of the kindness and wisdom we embody to each being and each situation that we meet. May the power of our practice today strengthen our resolve to be agents of peace and justice in this world. We dedicate our practice for the liberation of all beings, the great, the small, the wise, the ignorant, the powerful and the powerless. May all beings be liberated from sorrow and loss, hatred and injustice, scarcity and want, and every form of suffering. May our practice today be a prayer for peace, and may it benefit all beings without exception. Thank you all. I hope you have a very restful and easeful holiday period and through into the new year. I found myself feeling a little stressed and underprepared, as just like, wait, what now? It's this week, and thinking about like a lot of small things that added up to what feels like a lot of one big thing to take care of. But at those times, I remind myself, hold on, just come back, just look, and then usually, or always actually, what's the next thing? What's the next step? We take that next step forward. And I really appreciate you being here today, and thank you so much.